Okay, so I'm going to be talking about some various apps that help support crop nutrition. A couple of quick notes. I am not an app developer. I am not an app expert. There's a packet here that John has that he's going to pass around if anybody wants to take. It's a listing of all the crop nutrition apps that we could think of. It is not an exhaustive list. There's about 40 crop nutrition apps on this list. And we basically went through and bucketed them into various categories. We gave you an icon of what they might look like in the App Store, whether that's through Google Play or the Apple App Store. We listed what operating system each app works through, gave a little brief description, and then we let you know if that app was free or if it required an account to use it. So this is just for your reference to have, and John will pass those around. I will say that most all of the apps that we looked at are free. Some of them are not. Some of them give you extra features if you pay, but you get base features for free. We've noted that in the packet. And so we took these buckets of different types of apps and we broke them down into about 10 categories. And then we grouped them on that in that packet. But the buckets include nutrition and information and calculators. We have some apps that solely focus on data management, prescriptions, record keeping, ways to calculate area, to do some scouting, things like that. And so those of you who don't have the packet yet, again, this is kind of what it looks like. It's organized in a fashion that groups them into their buckets. So I think I'm going to take the time here to ask you another question. And I would like to know that if you are interested in starting to use apps on your operation, or maybe you already do, what do you find the biggest hurdle to be in utilizing app technology on your farm? Is it that there's too much of a time investment to learn how to use some of these apps? Is it the potential for a cost associated with an app that you're interested in? Maybe there's too many choices. Maybe there doesn't seem to be a one-size-fits-most app that would work for your operation. Maybe it's something else. So there's a couple of tricks to finding the right app, and sometimes these tricks don't even work. Okay, but we really encourage you to use your resources. Ask around. Talk to people. Talk to people who may have already gotten into that space of utilizing apps. You can talk to your sales reps. Sometimes some of the products that they sell have apps that go along with their products. I'm going to talk about one of those here in a little bit. You can just go into the App Store and start searching for apps just by keywords. But I want to caution you to really look at the descriptions of those apps. Sometimes the descriptions are just dropped in there from the developer and don't really make a lot of sense. Sometimes you might want to read reviews that people have left in the App Store about the app to try to decide if that app is right for you. So use a lot of those resources. Sometimes you just come across an app that looks kind of cool and you're like, hey, what's this? You download it and it turns out to be something really useful. So that's always a possibility. All right, so I'm going to talk about 5 apps today, only because I'm on a limited amount of time, and there's over 40 apps that we analyzed in the packet that I sent you, or that I gave out, and the 5 that I'm going to talk about is Ag PhD, 360, specifically the Soil Scan app, Climate, FieldView, and FieldView Cab, Ohio State Plots, which I'm sure some of you have heard me talk about in past years, and then OnMark, which I believe has also been talked about here at CTC. So I will say that across the top, those top three are industry apps, and Plots and OnMark, they're the two on the bottom. Those were developed through funds at Ohio State, through Farm Bureau, through Knox County Soil and Water. So those are more of your public sector type apps. All right, so OnMark is a pretty cool app. Has anybody here ever used OnMark or have heard of it? Maybe at past CTC events. Okay, so OnMark is pretty cool. It is, it's a record-keeping app. And what's really nice about it is that it syncs with your smartphone, and you can record all of your fertilizer and manure applications from the field. And so you can enter your fertilizer type, your rate, your amount applied, acres, soil conditions, all on your smartphone. I will say that a desktop computer is needed to set up initial registration of this tool, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But it's compliant with Senate Bill 1, so all of your record keeping can be done right here and keep you in compliance with Senate Bill 1. So this is sort of what it looks like when you first go in through the desktop version. You have a welcome screen that asks you to register or log in. And then once you do that, you can set up your farms, your fields, different applications. You can assign applicators if you have more than one applicator in your operation. And it's all based on this applicator key right here. And you're assigned an applicator key when you log in. So here's where you can assign applicators to different individuals who work in your operation. They all have access to the field information, the application information that is housed on your main account. So as they go through and make applications, they can do it from their phone as long as they're logged in with their applicator key that's tied to the account. And then they can go in and record their information for the operation. From the smartphone or tablet or iPad, iPhone, not desktop, but from the mobile device standpoint, the home screen will tell you what the temperature is, what your winds are, and what your expected rainfall is, which is really nice because that's a big way that we plan our application is around the weather. So it says here, if your application takes longer than 1 day, please log a new application on the following day. Okay, so even if your weather is really nice on 1 day, it may not be the next day. You kind of need to figure out how you're going to log those applications and when you're going to apply. It's not just a plug and go. You kind of have to think about those things. Up on here for the home 40 field, it says conditions are acceptable based on the weather that was shown from the home screen. So then you go through your field, home 40. You can choose what type of application you're making. In this case, it's fertilizer. You tell it what time you started. You can include custom applications as well. It was surface applied with ground equipment. And over here it asks for soil conditions. And it says that the ground was frozen, snow covered, but it'll be incorporated within 24 hours, and it was applied to a growing crop. So these are all different things that you can select within this app. And like I said, it's compliant with Senate Bill 1, and it gives you the option to send out like a summary report that you can print out, and you can tag your applicator number to it. and you can just print those off and keep them in your records, not only digitally but physically, for your nutrient management records. So the next app is interesting because it is actually tied to a physical product. So the 360 soil scan, has anybody here used the 360 soil scan app or soil scan device? Some of you? Okay. So the 360 soil scan is basically a portable soil lab that gives you nitrate and pH analyses in about 5 minutes, depending on what sample you're using. The app is free, but the equipment is not. So the actual portable lab device runs just over $5,000, less than $6,000. The app is free though. And if you would like to know more information about the 360 soil scan, you can talk to Greenfield Ag out here, because I don't think they brought one, but they're a distributor for that. So this is what the soil scan portable lab and app look like. So you basically take a soil sample from your field and you put it in a little Dixie cup type cup, and you put in 2 scoops of soil, you add some water, and you make a slurry, and then you stick it underneath of this sensor right here. And then the app plugs into this part of the soil scanner, and it starts the analysis. And the analysis can take anywhere between 2 and 8 minutes. And so what's happening here is it tells you that the analysis is in progress, what your parts per million are for nitrate. You can include your farmer name, what field you're testing soil from. It is advised to recalibrate your machine every 5 samples. And then once your sample is finished being ran, you basically just include your yield goal, your crop growth stage, and your soil organic matter, and it will tell you what your needs, your nitrogen needs are. So again, the app is free, the mobile lab is not. So Climate FieldView, we're going to talk about, which is, anybody here use Climate? Okay, a few of you. So FieldView is an integrated digital ag application app that has a lot of different tools in it. And one of the tools is FieldView Cab. And I personally don't work enough with FieldView, but essentially FieldView Cab is what's going to pull in all of your machine data, and then all of your agronomic data is going to come in through FieldView, but you can get to both platforms through either. FieldView itself is going to have a lot of like your rainfall data and more of like your soils information, things like that, whereas all of your machine data, like I said, is going to come through FieldView Cab, and you're going to use that in your equipment. So the main portal of FieldView Cab looks like this. And here's an example of a nitrogen application by zone. Or I'm sorry, this is not a nitrogen application, but it's it shows your nitrogen deficiencies by zone. And I will say that I didn't use any of our fields for this. These are all screen grabs that I got from FieldView's page. There's some sensitivity issues, so I can't put any of our fields and our growers on there, but these are all from the FieldView website, which you can go see and learn more about how these different screens look and kind of what they provide to you. But here is an example that shows nitrogen potential throughout the growing season. It'll show when your nitrogen applications were made, and then based on an algorithm of weather conditions, it will estimate the potential nitrogen. And so up here, it looks like we have a fall application, and then we have a pre-plant, and then a side dress, and a late season, and then it graphs for you what that nitrogen potential looks like over the season. This is kind of nice. It'll give you a yield analysis. In this case, the yield analysis is based on soil types. You can also do it by hybrid, but then you're also given the option to do a yield analysis by custom zone. So if you have custom nitrogen zones from like a variable rate nitrogen application, you can estimate your yields by that as well. Ohio State Plots. This one is near and dear to my heart. Who here has ever used Ohio State Plots or has heard of it? I hope I see a lot of hands. Okay. So Ohio State Plots is a nifty tool that allows you to create on-farm research trials that are randomized and replicated. It is free. Oh, I should say that FieldView is free for very, very base operations, but any sort of like extra functionality that you want, you can move up into different packages that you pay for. So Ohio State Plots, like I said, you can create randomized and replicated on-farm trials, and it's free. And one of the nice features of Ohio State Plots is that it will spit out a summary report for you that will statistically analyze any of your research parameters that you used. And I'll show you that here in a minute. So to use plots, it's pretty intuitive and user-friendly. You set up a treatment. With plots, you can create a plot layout, that randomized and replicated layout. You can create that without logging in and creating an account. The accounts are free also, but if you create an account, you have access to all of your trials and all of your history of trials, and you can export out your summary report. Basically, the only thing you can't do without logging in, that you can do without logging in, is run that plot layout, which is also a handy tool if that's all you need it for. But you basically set up your first trial, and you give it a name, and you can tell it the number of treatments and the number of reps, and then you kind of set up all this preferred information. So what's the field name? Where is it located? You can GPS tag your field. What your field practices were, what the crop is. There's a whole slew of questions that you can answer about your field to help give you a more holistic view of what your study looks like. And we encourage anybody that uses this to try to fill in as much information as you can so that you have a more comprehensive look at your study. So this particular study, the treatments were nitrogen, well, the study was nitrogen timing, and their treatments were at plant, side dress, late season, and control. And so the combination of these different applications made up our treatments. And so this is an example of our plot layout. So rep 1 is divided into 4 strips, and those strips then are each of our treatments. And over here, like I said, it's kind of small, so I'll try to walk you through this as best as I can, but you can go through and add values to these different research and result parameters. So grain moisture content, we've added some data for. This is just what we added for yield. So when we went through and harvested, we put in our yield values for each of those plot strips. And then at the end, you can export out your summary report that will give you a statistical analysis of those different treatments and show you if there's any statistical difference between any of the treatments that you used, which is nice because it kind of helps guide you in making a little bit maybe better of a decision on, hey, do I actually need that much nitrogen? Or did it help to push back my nitrogen application and divide it out over, plant side dress in late season instead of putting it all on up front? It's kind of a nice little way to show you the statistics behind your decisions. So Plots was used this year in quite a few of our eField studies. Have you guys heard of eFields? Looks like this. Maybe some of you have. So it's a book that has a whole bunch of different on-farm research trials, and Plots was used in a handful of them to help set up those randomized and replicated plots. And so our treatments were set up with 28%, 28, and 1034, sulfur, zinc. We went through and had all these different treatments. We collected moisture ratings and yield ratings, and then these statistics came right out of our app. So real quickly here, the Ag PhD family of apps. There's about 12 apps in the family. They're free. And I'm just going to go through just a few of them to kind of show you what they have to offer. So this first one is the Fertilizer Removal by Crop app, part of the Ag PhD family. And it will go through and tell you what the crop removal rates are. So you just choose what crop you have. And in this case, we chose alfalfa. And we put in our yield goal, and then all the different nutrients here, nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, sulfur, magnesium. It went through and calculated the total removal in pounds for those, for that crop, for those nutrients. The Ag PhD family also includes an app on spray tips. You can choose what your application is, or you can choose by the chemical that you're using, and it'll give you recommended nozzle spacing, speeds, application rates. Or you can search by broadcast, banding, boom lists. They give you a bunch of different application options there too. What else is kind of nice about that spray tip guide is that it also gives you a local listing of where you can find those different spray tips if you want to go purchase them. The Ag PhD Deficiencies app will show you a variety of different crop deficiencies based on the crop that you choose. So for example, if we chose corn from this crop list, and there's all kinds of crops here. There's avocados and celery, beans, soybeans, the three big ones, obviously. But it will show you various pictures of what these deficiencies look like in that crop. So if you're out in the field, you can take that with you. You know, you look at your crop, you say something doesn't look right here, and you can browse a series of photos to try to best match what your crop is deficient in. Another nutrient removal calculator is from IPNI. It's also free. I just wanted to let you know that Ag PhD isn't the only crop removal or nutrient removal calculator out there. This is another example of one. But it does the same thing. Just looks a little different. You pick your crop, you put in your yield goal, and it spits out what the nutrient removal is. So let me ask you guys one more question. So I would like to know, this is an open-ended question. So what type of apps would you like to see that aren't currently available to you? You can tell me what you want that app to do. You can tell me what you want that app to look like. If maybe there's an app that you already use that doesn't just quite hit the mark. If you have any suggestions on what could make it better, that would be great to hear about. So like I said, it's an open-ended question. Take your time with it.